On the exact same day that a new government coalition announced its plans in The Hague, SID organised its yearly conference on the same spot. Its main question was how to deal with global common goods ranging from clear water to peace in an international context no longer dominated by nation-states alone. Representatives from, amongst others, business, government and civil society discussed the global and Dutch implications. Professor Franz-Josef Radermacher from Universiteit Ulm discussed in his contribution the need for what he calls eco-social international governance.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, honorary guests, I'm very happy to be with you this morning. We have huge problems in climate, in energy, with population, with the difference between rich and poor. In global governance, we have so many. The question is, what is the core issue behind all those problems? And I think at the moment we should ask the question whether the two main concepts for which the world as a whole has opted, whether they are compatible at all. We have two major global decisions. One is we do the economy in markets. I would say since the fall of the Berlin Wall, this is a decision for humankind. We go for markets. In markets we organize the production of goods and services. And then we have a second decision that is we want to be sustainable. At least we say that. So at least on the level of words, we have two main concepts. One is markets and the other is sustainability. Of course, you wouldn't even find a hardcore economist saying the present economy globally is sustainable. So at the moment, we have two concepts, but they absolutely don't fit. The global economy is more or less contrary to sustainability. But the question is, could we have an economic global system that is sustainable? Or is there logical reasons that it is impossible? This is, I think, is a basic question. Maybe it is impossible. When they asked Stiglitz recently about the invisible hand, he said, I never saw one. Maybe there is none. The possibility is that what we hope for isn't just there. Maybe it is not possible to have a world for 10 billion people organized via markets that is sustainable. And if that would be the case, it would be a disaster. Because then we would have to do a crucial choice. Either we want markets and wealth, and goods and services, and destroy the world, or we just not destroy the world, but there is not much in goods and services. It's a very frustrating choice if it would not be possible. Now, I will not ask you what you think, but I recently find out that there is many people who are convinced that it is impossible. Even many people from business say, no, it's not possible. I cannot even imagine that it could be possible. Now, I think we from the Club of Rome, or from the Eco-Social Forum of Europe, or from the Global Marshall Plan Initiative, we think it is possible. It is possible to have a rich world organized in markets, a rich world for 10 billion people, which is still sustainable. So the point is that maybe with negative growth in resource use, we need real growth in goods and services. So this is an issue of technology first. But the problem with the technology is that there is this so-called rebound effect. And the rebound effect historically shows that while we always are more efficient, eco-efficient, we still use more resources because the higher efficiency consuming always more, always as frustrated as before, and whatever we have more efficiency, we just want people consuming more. This is called the boomerang effect. And the most disastrous example of the boomerang effect is the IT industry and, for instance, the paperless office. Everybody knows paperless office is the place of the highest paper use ever. Yeah, but this is always the same. And therefore, and now we are at the topic of your conference, we need as much innovation in governance as we need innovation in technology. And the governance issue is more complicated than the technology issue. The question is, can we have a reasonable global governance? A global governance for common goods. Global governance for a rich, balanced globe. Is that possible or is it not possible? Now, in principle, it is not so difficult if for 1 minute we imagine we would be a global democracy. And we have the same language, and we had a global ethos in our schools. It's not a problem. The problem is to implement it with 192 states, each of which is sovereign, and each of which has its own perspective. So the problem is in global contract building. It's a kind of prisoner's dilemma situation in which we are, and how would we eventually do it? And I will just finish my talk with a few examples where I think we should emphasize and where there is also a potential. Where can we do something? And I think this is a crucial moment in time, because time is running out, is one topic. But 2012 is a very important date. In 2012, we have Rio +20, so we will have the global social agenda with the Millennium Development Goals and everything on the table. But in 2012, we also have the end of the Kyoto contract, and so we have the climate energy issue on the table. But also in 2012, we will have the decision on the future structure of the global financial system following the global financial crisis. So we have 3 topics of global governance at the same time on the table for 2012. And everything is connected with everything, so it's a very crucial moment in time. Now I think we need the following elements and need to work on. One is to extend global democracy. And there is now the idea of a parliamentary assembly at the United Nations. It's a very good idea. The European Parliament already voted on it, that they support it. Many actors support the idea of a parliamentary assembly at the United Nations. At the moment without any power, but with the one power to articulate a global position. I think it would be a big step forward if we have this parliamentary assembly at the United Nations. The second point comes from the disaster in the global financial system. We urgently need a strict regulation of the global financial sector. It must include certain elements of harmonization of taxes. It cannot be that the most successful economic actors don't pay tax. We need those taxes for global development. We need those taxes so that our states can repay the debt coming from the financial crisis. It is impossible to get rid of that debt on the national level. It would directly drive our countries into Brazilianization. What we have to do is we have to tax the global processes where the strongest actors make the highest returns and don't pay taxes. And we have in particular to close the tax havens. And I'm very happy that the G20 started to work on this. And if there is any positive outcome from the financial crisis, it's the new role of the G20, and that the G20 goes for tax havens. But there should also also go for the harmonization of taxes, and we urgently need transaction taxes. Transaction taxes bring income, but even more transparency. And we need transparency for global economic processes as we have them for national processes. Using that money, we can invest into the Millennium Development Goals, we can invest into education. Education is at the key for a richer world. And of course, with a common understanding, we can then also invest into the energy and climate issue. I close with the energy and climate issue. Many people are frustrated with Copenhagen. But this is very much the point of a rich OECD world, talking about India and China not wanting to do something. They're not the problem. The problem are us. And the Chinese and Indians did a big step in Copenhagen by offering that their increases in CO2 will be sub the world's growth rate. So that they look at our economic growth rate and our CO2 growth rate will be lower. The Chinese go down to 60%. The Indians go down to 75%. But the Indians have almost no emission. Now if you have a 75 of the big growth rate, growth of almost nothing is nothing. So we should be thankful to the Indians and make a contract out of it. We worked on that contract. There is a very reasonable contract possible if you intelligently work with Copenhagen. And you can combine Copenhagen with the global forestation program. We think we have to have a forestation program of 5 million square kilometers. It will bind 200 billions of tons of CO2 permanently, and it's of the character of a global Marshall Plan, and companies and people in the rich world will pay for it to be climate neutral. We should more intelligently go into these contracts. There's everything on the table. I had yesterday the opportunity to talk to the chief negotiator of the German Environmental Ministry, and he is just on the way to Tianjin for the preparation of the Mexico conference. He said to me, the problem is, even we in Germany, we are not really willing to pay something to the Indians and Chinese to limit their emissions. And that's a crucial point. The point is not that we invest in our houses. No, we can also invest in our houses, but this doesn't solve the climate problem. We have to put the money in China and India. And this is like global cooperation. And we have to open the mind that we are richer if we cooperate, including money flows, than trying to solve everything at home that the money stays with us. We need a wording. I think the wording is, yes, we like markets. Markets can be sustainable. But then it's certainly not free markets. It's ecologically and socially and culturally regulated